All right, let's quickly recollect what we discussed so far. A project is initiated to fulfill certain objectives. The end goal of any project is to deliver the defined objectives. Those objectives or requirements, that is the why part of the project initiation, is documented in business documents such as business case and business benefits management plan. During the project initiation phase, only the high level requirement of the project is known. The high level requirements are documented in project charter. As a next step, the detailed requirements need to be collected from the project stakeholders. To do that, a project has to be authorized and the project manager need to be appointed. Through project charter, the project sponsor authorizes the project manager and the project. Just remember, we directly jumped from develop project charter in project integration management. We will go back to project integration management after completing the rest of the knowledge area. Now, we are in scope management and it's time to collect the requirements from stakeholders and define the scope of the project. These requirements can be the wants and needs of various stakeholders. Irrespective of the need or want, all the requirements from the stakeholders need to be collected and documented. We already had a brief discussion about the stakeholders in the previous discussion. Let's recollect it quickly. Who are stakeholders? Stakeholders are the one who are positively or negatively impacted by the outcome of the project. The impact can be direct or indirect. They can be individual or group or an organization. Stakeholders can be internal or external. Stakeholders are categorized as primary, secondary, and tertiary. We took the example of kitten puppies, alligators, and tigers. In a project, every stakeholders have their own requirements and priority. For example, in our construction project, requirement of the management can deliver the project on time and with 10% less cost than planned. The requirement of the project sponsor is to deliver all the villa, semi-independent villa, and the apartment within budget with agreed quality level. The requirement of a client or the customer will be the house should be as per the specification handed over on time. The requirement of the building supervisor can be get all the raw material on time from the supplier and all the manpower required on time with the right skill set. There should not be any rain during the construction period. The requirement of the electrician may be quality pipes, quality wires, quality switches, so that he can complete the work on time without rework caused by poor quality raw material. He needs all these quality supply on time. The requirement of scheduling professional can be clearly defined in scope. This will help him to list down all the activities to be carried out to complete the project, and he can map all those activities into the schedule. By the way, the listed requirements from various stakeholders are just for example. In real life, there will be much more. As you could notice, some of them can be fulfilled and some of them is not in the hands of project manager. For example, the building supervisors, one of the requirement is not to have rain. It's not in the hands of project manager. Also, the management wants to complete the project by 10% less cost than budgeted. Without having a detailed plan, reducing the project cost is something not in the hands of project manager. So, in summary, the requirements may have needs, wants, and wish list of various stakeholders. I hope you are getting the idea. Now, an exercise to you. Think of one of your recently completed project or the project that is ongoing and write down all the stakeholders and their requirements. I hope you have completed the exercise. All right, now let's continue our discussion. On one side, you have the stakeholders requirement, and on the other side, you have the high-level objective of the project defined in the project charter. Can you deliver all the requirements of all the stakeholders? Of course not. You need to separate the requirements. When I say requirements, I meant both the wants and needs of the stakeholders. Let's discuss about it. The requirements may be in line with the project charter or may not be. The segregation should be based on the scope defined in the project charter. This categorization will help you to understand what should be part of the project and what shouldn't be part of the project. Let's take an example from the construction project. A minute back, we discussed about one of the requirement of building supervisor. not to have rain during the construction period. It's not in the hands of project manager. So it's only his wish list. So you exclude it from the scope of the project because obviously you can't stop the rain. Let's take another example. One of the apartment buyer asked for TV points in all three bedrooms. To fulfill this requirement, you have to lay additional cable along with the pipes from the main point and connect the entire home with cables. This will increase the overall budget, let's say by 2%. So you decided not to fulfill this requirement, put it on the wish list of the customer, not in the scope of the project. I hope you get a fair idea now the difference between the requirement and the scope. The requirements that are in line with the project charter will become part of project scope. To do this segregation, the high-level scope in project charter, the project sponsor, and sometimes even the client can help you. Once it's done, you clearly know what is part of the project and what is not part of the project. What is part of the project naturally becomes part of project scope. Then you break down the project scope further down into more manageable pieces such as work packages, activities, which will be used as input in scope management, cost management, and other knowledge area. Don't worry if you don't understand all these terminologies, we will discuss in detail later. But I hope you are getting the idea now. Don't forget, even after the project gets started, the wants and the needs of stakeholder will keep coming into the project until the project gets completed in the form of change request. I hope you remember our earlier discussion about change management. So, all these changes should be handled through perform integrated change control. And your job as a project manager is to evaluate all the changes requested, analyze them, and how will they impact the project in terms of scope, in terms of schedule, cost, quality, and other knowledge areas. Forward the change request along with your assessment to the change control board. The change control board decides whether to proceed with the changes or deny the changes. If it's approved, then it becomes part of the project. You, the project manager, needs to implement those changes. If the change request is rejected, you need to document it and communicate back to the requester stating that his or her request has been rejected by change control board for so and so reasons. So, collecting the requirements and converting them as project scope is a key activity. Let's talk about stakeholders engagement. To avoid the changes at later point of time in the project, it's best to involve all the project stakeholders as early as possible in the project, preferably in the planning phase itself. This helps the project to be scope driven rather than change driven. Just imagine if you keep getting new requirements every now and then throughout the project without an end, how is it going to look like for you and to the project execution team? So, involve all the stakeholders as much as possible. Collect all the requirements as detailed as possible, as quickly as possible, ideally in the planning phase itself. Involve all the stakeholders, whoever have higher influence on the requirement gathering discussion. I hope you remember the type of stakeholders and managing them. This makes the scope of the project crystal clear. The project will run smoothly. Similarly, any changes introduced at the beginning of the project are a lot easier and less costly because not much of work has been done. But as the project progresses, incorporating changes may become more complicated and also it will be expensive. It may require an extensive amount of rework to incorporate those changes. So, try to involve the stakeholders at the early stage of the project and also try to collect the requirements. Imagine after you completed the fourth floor, that is one of the important component which is part of safety and also part of government regulation is missed out. That's been pointed out by the safety officer. Let's say the project manager completely missed out the safety officer from the stakeholders list. How was it going to look like? Remember, during the beginning of the project, the stakeholder influences will be higher. As the project progresses, it will go down because already all the requirements are collected and the project is making progress towards its final objective as per the stakeholder requirement. Just remember, in a large project, it's not so easy to identify all the key stakeholders. Also, it's very time consuming activity. All right, you have identified all the stakeholders and collected the requirements. Now it's time to get the scope approval. Once all the requirements are collected from all the stakeholders, scope should be finalized. Then the documented, finalized scope should be forwarded to the sponsor or senior management for approval. Once the management approves, it's called frozen scope. In project management terminology, it's called baseline scope. Typically, the project manager has to do this job. Any change requested before baselining the scope, there is no need to follow change control process to implement them into the project. But once the scope is baselined, then it's absolutely mandatory that change has to be managed as per change control plan. That's something we discussed a minute ago. The project manager has to evaluate the impact of the change, document it, forward it to the change control board. The change control board decides whether to approve or reject the change. If it's approved, then the change should be incorporated in the project. Remember, once change is approved, it becomes the new scope of the project. So, respective scope, schedule, and or cost has to be re-baselined. If the change request is rejected, then document it, and the respective stakeholders need to be informed about it. Again, this is the responsibility of the project manager. Depending on the organization, depending on the type of project, at times the project manager has some authority to approve the changes requested. For example, if the change impacts the project schedule by 1 week in 1 year project, then it can be directly approved by the project manager. There is no need to take it into change control board. Or if the requested change will cost, let's say, $500 in a multi-million dollar project, then the project manager can directly approve those changes. These thresholds are completely depends on the type of project and the sponsor or the organization. This authority level has to be defined in the project charter. Anything over and above what is mentioned in the project charter has to go through the change control board. Again, it's absolutely mandatory to document those changes and communicate to the respective stakeholders. And also other standard process such as scope has to be re-baselined if the impact is on the scope. And of course, the cost has to be re-baselined if the impact is on the cost. You may be wondering, why are we discussing change control process time and again? The reason is many students don't understand this and tend to make mistake in the examination while answering change related questions. In fact, we will be discussing about the change management process time and again throughout this course because changes can come from any corner of the project which will have direct or indirect impact on any of the knowledge area in the project. Let's look at few more points related to requirements management. Gathering the requirements from the stakeholders takes a lot of time, especially the untold requirements. Not all the stakeholders will express what they want. With some of the stakeholders, you may need to use certain tools and techniques to collect the requirements. We will have a detailed discussion on this shortly, but for now, just remember that it's not easy to collect the untold requirements from the stakeholders. Bigger the project, more the stakeholders will be involved, and the requirements collection becomes complicated and time consuming. We are talking about requirements time and again because requirements defines the scope. Of course, any requirements which is not part of the project should not be part of the scope. All right, now a question to you. In our construction project, the original scope is to construct the compound wall at 3 feet height, let's say. Later, one of the customer called the construction supervisor and asked him to increase the compound height by another 1 feet, only at the backyard. The supervisor decided to do it to please the customer. In terms of schedule, it will not take so much of time. It hardly takes 2 days. 2 days in 6 months project, maybe not. In terms of cost, it won't cost much because already so much of material is lying around. They can be used to raise the wall level by 1 feet. Do you think the supervisor's decision is correct? Let's see the good side of it. First of all, it's asked by the customer. Customer is always the king. By giving the feature, the customer is going to be more happy. Secondly, it's not going to cost much because already all the materials are available. In terms of time, you're not going to really burn a lot of days. It takes only a couple of days. Now, let's look at the bad side of it. The supervisor decided to deliver something which is not there in the scope. He decided to do something to please the customer which is completely out of the scope. Anything done which is not in the scope is called as gold plating. This should not be done in the project. Let it be by the team member or the supervisor or even by the project manager. A big no-no to gold plating. Why gold plating is not allowed? At first, it may sound looks everything okay, but that may not be the reality. In this case, it could be that in terms of time and cost, it may not be a big deal. But in terms of resource utilization, the project manager might have other plans to use the resource for different activities. In terms of risk, there may be engineering reasons why the wall should not be raised more than 3 feet. There may be safety reasons. The supervisor may not know all these details. So, it's absolutely mandatory to analyze before doing any change which is not part of the project scope, even though the request is from the customer. Here, don't confuse gold plating with process improvements. Process improvement is finding better ways to do the current way of doing things. By improving the existing process, you're going to improve the situation in terms of schedule, cost, quality, etc. The improved way of doing things may become new standard, but gold plating is not so. Changes are completely project manager's responsibility. The project manager has to identify the changes proactively throughout the project. He has to ensure that none of the changes which are not part of the project scope will not be implemented in the project. If the project manager is not proactive enough, there will be n number of changes from all corner of the project from all the stakeholders. When there are uncontrolled number of changes in the project, then it's called scope creep. The dictionary meaning of scope creep is something slip out of the place or shifts gradually. Here we are talking about scope which is going out of the hand, so it's scope creep. Among the PMP aspirants, another confusing terminologies are product scope and project scope. Let's look at it. Product scope. Product scope defines the characteristics of the product, such as how it should look like, how it should work, and the technical features. Let's take bridge as an example. If the product is bridge, then the product scope might be what should be the length of the bridge, width, its load carrying capacity, etc. Let's take another example, mobile phone. For mobile phone, the product scope will be its screen size, battery capacity, processor speed, camera megapixel, internal memory, and the RAM, etc. If any of the requirements of the product is omitted, then the product will not look complete. Project scope. Do all the work required, and the only work required is called project scope. In fact, the product scope will define the project scope. Project scope is all about the work to be done to create the product. Don't do anything more than required to create the product, or do not do anything less than required to break the product. Nothing less, nothing more. Do all the work required and the only work required. Let's go back to the bridge example. You make basement, construct pillars, pave road on the top. For the mobile phone, design the outer shell, design camera, design battery. The project activities will vary between products as well, of course. The activities to be done for a 40-ton load carrying capacity bridge will vary from 60 tons load carrying capacity bridge, obviously, right? You may have to add more pillars, you may have to add more steel. The concrete mixture will vary. Also, depending on the total length of the bridge, there will be more number of activities and planning has to be done accordingly. Similarly, the project activities will vary depending on the type of the mobile phone, such as camera type, whether it's pop-up or inbuilt. So accordingly, the mobile phone case has to be designed, so the activities will vary. The product scope defines the product's look and feel and its technical characteristics, whereas the project scope defines the list of activities to be carried out to deliver the product and do only those activities and nothing but those activities. Let's look at some more examples. Let's look at our construction example. You are the project manager who handles the construction project. If someone comes to you and asks you what is the project scope, you most likely will say that the project scope is to deliver a 5 BHK bedroom hall kitchen, semi-independent villa consists of 4 BHK and 3 BHK apartment consists of hundreds of houses in it. If the same question is asked to a product manager, then he will say, The bedrooms will be of 21 by 16 vertical tiles, a garden area of 2000 square feet, so on and so forth. I hope you're getting the idea. If the same question is asked to a product manager of a mobile manufacturing company, then his answer will be the mobile phone will have 4000 mAh battery, 48 megapixel camera, 6.5-inch Super AMOLED screen, etc. If someone asks the project manager who handles the mobile designing project, then his answer will be the project scope is to design mobile back cover, mobile camera, mobile battery, etc. Completion of the product scope is measured against the product requirements, such as whether it has a 4000 mAh battery, 48 megapixel camera, 6.5-inch screen, etc. Completion of project scope is measured against the progress that is defined in the project plan, such as for the mobile phone project, in 15 days, the back panel will be designed, in 30 days, the batteries, and in 3 months, the entire project will be completed. In the construction project, you might say that in 15 days, all the ground cleaning work has to be completed. In 30 days, the foundation work has to be completed. In 3 months' time, the lintel level work has to be completed, so on and so forth. Let's look at one final example for the product scope and project scope. Let's do the miniature version of our construction project. Let's say you are an independent consultant who does civil work. One of your client gave his requirement to construct his house. He gives you the requirements such as size of the hall, size of the bedroom, and size of the kitchen, the kind of material to be used, the paint color, etc. You start working on this project. You prepare a plan, develop schedule, estimate the budget. After developing and approving the plan, you gather the team and move to the execution phase. You bring the workers to the site and start constructing the building. You complete the house and then verify with your internal team, ask your client to validate whether is it as per his requirements. Once the client is satisfied with the output, you hand over the building to him. You get your final payment and the project is happily closed. In this example, there are two parts. The first one is client asking you to build his house and he gave his requirements. Here we are talking about the product characteristics. So here the house is product and his requirements are scope. Therefore, what he gave you is the product scope. The second part is your work. You constructed the house within specified time and budget and met all the client's requirements. Finally, you delivered the product to the client. This part, the work you have done to construct his house, is project scope. You did only the work that is required to fulfill the product scope. All right, let's move to the next topic. As the project progresses, you may make interim deliverables. Before it goes to the customer, it's a general practice where the internal quality team verifies the delivery internally. It's logical as well, right? Rather than the customer finding fault in the delivery, it's better to have a look at by the internal quality team. In case of any issue found, it can be fixed and only the good and final quality output can be delivered to the customer. Here, I'm using delivery of the product for the simplicity reason, but the delivery can be product, service, or result. The delivery is validated against the scope by the client. These two words, which are quite often gets confused with each other. You might have observed, even in the previous explanation, it's verify scope and validate scope. The check done by the internal team against the scope is called as verify scope. The customer checks the delivery against the scope is called as validate scope. Yeah, it may look confusing. Let me tell you an easy way to remember it. You never ask your customer to verify the deliverable, do you? Let's say you bought a new mobile. How will you feel if the company asks you to verify the deliverable such as, "Dear Mr. Customer, can you verify whether the screen is of 6.5 inches? Can you verify whether all the functionalities work properly?" How would you feel? Awkward, right? So, all the verification should be done by the internal quality team of the company. The validation will be done by the customer. So, verify scope is done by the internal quality team and validate scope is done by the customer. After validating the scope and accepting the deliverables, there will be a formal sign-off by the authorized stakeholders, let it be internal or external. By the way, in many organizations, if the project is for the internal customer, Then the project scope is called statement of work. If you remember our earlier discussion in Project Charter, I have mentioned that the word Project Charter may be new to some of you because you may follow statement of work, which is mostly for the internal customers.